welcome back to the channel. So today, this video, whatever, we are working on the tracker again. I have got my fingers on one of the coveted steel differentials for the front of one of these. And so what we're doing tonight is we're gonna put this steel housing into there. I'm actually gonna keep the pumpkin that's in here and put it into that housing because I don't have to go with gear setup and bearings and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm keeping an aluminum pumpkin in a steel housing, but the housings are what tend to break. And if I blow up a aluminum pumpkin, I got a steel one I can build and put together. So I'm gonna show you all that's involved with this. Down underneath here, because it's an independent front suspension rig, this piece here, this piece here is what we're changing out. So I've got a bolt up here to pull. You can kind of see it. A bolt up here to, oh, you can't see it. All right, let's try this again. So I've got a bolt up here to pull out. I've got two bolts here that pull out. Those support the snout of the pumpkin. And then I've got another bolt up in, you see the mount here. There's another bolt up there I gotta pull out. And then I also have to disconnect this axle and pop that axle out of the pumpkin. At the same time, you can actually kind of see it here. I've got my oil pan gasket. You can't really see it. My oil pan gasket's leaking really bad. That's because there's a cork. That's because when I rebuilt the engine, I put a cork gasket in before I knew that. Anyway, before I knew that you were not supposed to put a cork gasket in these things. So while I have the differential out, I'm gonna pull the oil pan off and silicone it like it's supposed to be from the factory. That's how it's supposed to be done. And then put it all back together. So that's what's on the agenda for today. This should be fun, so here we go. All right, so I got it all unbolted now. We're going to make an attempt to drop it out of there. Let's see how this goes. That's gonna have to come off. It's out. Royal pain in the butt, but it's out. Important note: take the the 3 brackets all the way off in order to get it out. Whew, that was a pain. Well, it's out. Now we're gonna take the pumpkin out of this one. We'll get everything all cleaned up. Well, probably clean up before I pull it out, and we'll see. Yeah, we'll clean this one up, get this pumpkin out of this one, and then we'll put this pumpkin in the other housing, and then it's all gonna go, well, get this prepped, and then I'm gonna drop the oil pan and do my oil pan gasket. So there's a lot of work to do yet, but that's out. So here we go. Neighbor kids and stuff are being really loud. So if you're wondering why I'm sweating and everything, this is why. It's 96 degrees in my garage right now. It's really hot. One of these days I'll put an air conditioner in here. All right, so took it outside, got it all pressure washed. A lot easier to see what I'm doing now. So we're gonna take all the bolts out and pull the pumpkin out of this one and see what kind of shape it's in. Two of these bolts are bigger bolts, so I'm just gonna mark them, which holes they go in. Loose. Can't pull this out. Try to pull the axle off of it. Usually helps. Now I bet you the pumpkin will pull right out. Oh, look at that. Look at that, would you look at that? Okay, so I'm peeping this pumpkin and putting it in that, like I said earlier. So I'm gonna get it all cleaned up. We're also gonna figure out what the gear ratio is. I'll show you how to do that in just a second here. So I've never actually checked my gear ratio in this thing. I just always assumed it's stock gears, which are 5.125 to 1. I did one of those YouTube shorts a while back explaining how to check the gear ratio. So we're actually just gonna do it again on this video. So I'm gonna go around it. It's nice when they're stamped into the gear, but on the last, that one over there, they weren't actually stamped. And they're not stamped in this one either. They're supposed to be stamped either here or here. There's no markings in this. So we're gonna go like this. Take a marker, we're gonna make a mark right here, where that is, and we're gonna make a mark here and here, where this is, and then we're gonna spin it. So we're gonna get 1 revolution out of this, and we're gonna see how many revolutions we get out of this. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 revolutions. and there's my mark. So if I go to, you know, an eighth of the way around, which is 0.125, which is there, these are 5.125 gears. So I went 5.125 revolutions on the input, or the pinion, whatever you want to call it, input shaft, and 1 revolution on the output shaft. So you can do this with the wheels on the vehicle. You go 1 revolution of the tire, count the number of revolutions of the driveline. So that's the way to do it with it on the vehicle. This is the way to do it with on the outside of the vehicle, because the tire is connected to this ring gear, and they're connected, so they spin the same revolutions per minute. Anyway, that's how to check your gear ratio. So we're gonna get this all cleaned up and stuffed into the steel housing.
Well,
I should take these gears and the whole thing and put it into that one to do it right. But at some point in the future, I want to do a locker on this, and so I'm holding off until I can get the locker. I'll put a locker in that. I'll do it all. I'll do it right. Selectable locker. Oh, bother. Now I gotta pull it back out and put silicone on it. All right, got it all cleaned up. I'm gonna put the old silicone on it and plunk it in there. Here we go. All right, the 2 bolts that were different size, they have a shoulder on them here that actually sinks into the lower case, which aligns the whole thing. So it lines this with the case. They're almost like alignment pins. That's why those 2 are like that. So those 2 are the ones I'm going to run in first. I'm going to run them down tight. Because I do want to tighten this evenly. But I'm going to run them in so it gets everything lined while I drop my other bolts in. That diff is together, except for the axle. It's together, and once I knock that back in there, it is ready to go into the car. So, that's where we're at for now. We'll see. I still have to do the oil pan on the car, so we'll see where we end up. It's kind of getting late tonight. I kind of have to mow my lawn while the sun's down because it's really hot during the day. See what my garage has got. Temperature's gotten down to. Oh, look at that. It's down to 96. It's still hot in here. Sun's down. Anyway, that's where we're at. All right, so we're doing the oil pan gasket under here. That's been fun. Let me show you what I've had to do here. So I got the oil pan dropped off. Forgot to video part of that. It's all dropped off. I got it all cleaned up. You can see I actually got the silicone applied to it. Here, I actually had to take off the oil pickup tube in order to get the pan out. And I turned the steering wheel all the way to the right because this is my steering linkage here, and the pan wouldn't, it just barely slide past that. I pull this forward and pull the pan down. I think I bent both of them just a little bit to get it out of there. So you can see in there, bottom of the engine, there. So this is all going back together. The factory service manual on these recommends only using silicone on the oil pan, which I'm really nervous about doing because if you don't do it carefully, put too much on there, it can squish into the oil where the oil is, and if anything flakes off, it gets sucked up. And if it gets sucked into your pickup tube and goes through and plugs a hole, it can ruin your engine. But I've been really careful. Hopefully I don't have any issues with that. I really don't want any issues with that. So I've been really careful to put it on there right. So this is going back together. Hard to video under here looking up because it's on the floor, but that's where we're at. All right, project's done. Went a long ways from saying I've got to do this to it's in. Anyway, thinking. Okay, so the differential, I didn't film it. It's not really that interesting, and it's hard to film under there. Put it right back in there. One thing to note, yeah, you have to use your mounts from the car you're taking it. You have to use your mounts from your vehicle, not the donor vehicle. It's funny because some of them were 3-bolt mounts, some of them were 4-bolt mounts, and so some of the mounts are missing a bolt because there's no hole for it to go into. But you know, they say if it takes 4 bolts, 3 will hold it as long as one's cross-threaded. So they're in there, they're all Loctited, good to go. Yeah, oil's changed, oil pan's back on, axles are in, differential's been filled with oil, vent tube's been put back on, everything's done. I even cleaned up my tools in the garage. So I'll show you what it looks like underneath. So now, looks a lot like it was before. That's where you can see the bolts missing out of that 4th thing, but the old one only had it's just interesting how that works out. Same thing over here. So yeah. It all works out nice. I'm excited. There's one less weak link on this thing. So like I mentioned earlier, I didn't put the steel pumpkin in it because I don't have a locker yet. When I get a selectable locker to put in that pumpkin, that's what I'm going to do. I didn't want to have to deal with all of the gearing, the gear setup, the gear pattern, the bearings, all that kind of stuff I didn't want to have to deal with. Right now, I want to wait until I get a locker, so I only have to deal with that once. So I kept my aluminum pumpkin, put it in the steel diff. So sure, it's a weak link, but hey, if I break it, I got a steel one that I can replace it with. So if all else fails. Anyway, that's another tracker video for you. So any questions on it, leave a comment below, and I'll see if I can answer them. So have a good one. And thanks for watching.